Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome back to another episode of All Things Fitness. And listen, we have a great podcast, I should say, for you today. We have a young man that's going to share a story. He's going to tell his journey. He's going to tell his story. And we're going to deal with something that's going to be a little bit different. So we titled this FTP, but it's not what you think. So before we get started with the broadcast, do me a favor. If you haven't already, go to the channel. Just look up Christian Cyclist Club and you'll see the banner at the bottom. Do me a favor, hit the like button, hit subscribe, join us. So with no further ado, let us go ahead and let's get to our broadcast. Hey, Chuck, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, Cross?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Listen, before we even get started, I just want to say thank you for coming on the broadcast. Thank you for being willing to share your story. And without a doubt, I know that someone is going to hear this story and they're truly going to be blessed by it. So, again, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, we titled this show. Well, all right, audience. So to be fair, let's give credit where credit is due, right? I did not have a title. So I asked Chuck, I said, Chuck, help me out. Give me a title for the show. And he came up with this title, FTP, and it's not what you think. So we're not going to tell you what FTP is just yet. However, it's certainly not. You remember that guy, right? So it's not that kind of FTP. But it is. It's a very important FTP. For us cyclists, we think the one I just showed you is the most important, right? So do you know your FTP, your cycling FTP, Chuck?
I do. I don't want to say it though, because it's pretty darn low.
Well, it couldn't be lower than mine. I'm not embarrassed. I've during the season, which was still low, I was 237 and now I'm 226. I just took an FTP test and, I tell you, I'm hoping after camp this winter, I would like to be, honestly, for me, if I can get anything around 250, 260, I would be elated. There's some guys that's zone 2 for them, but I'm okay with that.
That's what I'm shooting for. I just did a trainer FTP test and I was right around the two, I think 17.
Yeah. 250.
And then I thought about doing another one.
Did you?
Thought passed.
Yeah. To take a true FTP, it's not something you should enjoy. That's for certain. It takes a lot out of you, for that 20-minute period. You have killing yourself. So, all right. Well, let's get into it. Chuck, so, tell us a little bit about you, the cyclist. Let's talk about, now who you are, and then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about your journey and just, your story, that I think is going to be a blessing to many people that hear it. You are an avid cyclist now. And let's talk about how you came to me. Anna Marie reached out and said, hey, I got a guy, because our show is built off recommendations, referrals, right? And I'll ask you the same thing I ask anyone else. If you know anyone that you think will that can bless the audience that's watching this by their story, please refer them, make the connection, because that's how we bring people on, based off people who know people who have incredible stories. And you have an incredible story. But as a cyclist, you've done 26 centuries this season, right? Because the year is not over.
Yes.
This season. So let's talk about that for a second. What would motivate you to do 26 centuries? For you all that don't know, a century is 100 miles. Cycling, okay, not driving, cycling. And you've done that 26 times.
I have. Yeah. Well, I didn't plan on doing that many this year. 2 years ago, I did 12, and that was the most I've ever done by a lot. So then I decided last year I was going to do 20 of them. I knocked out the 20, and then this year I was just going to ride. I wasn't going to really look at that. And it was about, I think it was Memorial Day, and I already had 6 in. So I'm like, okay, let's see if I can get 22 of them in for 2022.
Wait.
And
Hold on. You went from 6, you had 6, and you said, let's see if I can get 22.
Yeah, it's only 16 more. So I got the 22, and then my daughter, love her to death. She's like, well, Dad, that's only 3 away from 25. So what are you doing? So I had to get the 25 in, and then I did one of them on the trainer inside just to one up what she thought I was going to do.
Oh, wow. So how long have you been cycling?
Oh gosh. So I got into cycling at a very young age. 1979, I saw a movie, Breaking Away. It's one of my favorite movies. It's not a good movie, but it's one of my favorite movies, and I like watching it every once in a while. And it's about Indiana boy, and I was born in Indiana, so I'm a Hoosier. And it was just a neat story. And I started riding then, and we used to ride as I was a kid, as I was growing up, and I got away from it for a while, and then I got back into it, and I just enjoy it.
Okay. So you're not a professional, or have you ridden for an organized team at any point?
No,
you are the general you are the classic or the true definition of a cycle enthusiast.
Yes,
someone who
100%.
just enjoys cycling. All right.
Yep,
That's
100%.
awesome. That's awesome. And how many miles have you got in so far this year?
I'm right a little over 7,500 right now. I've got around, my goal is 8,000 for the year.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a lofty goal. I think I'm just at 5,000, and I thought I was doing something.
You are. That's a great accomplishment. That's 5,000 more miles than a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I am blessed. I don't take it for granted. I truly do not take for granted the opportunity that we have to do what we love to do, cycling.
Good.
There's so many.
Good.
I've met so many cyclists that is encouraging to see that with all the struggles and everything. And then once we get into your story, even with your story, to do what you do now, that is just an absolute blessing. It is an absolute blessing. So let's talk about your story. Tell me, your story is a story of overcoming what?
So the FTP is the functional threshold power, right? And let's talk about that a little bit. And I got into riding, and then high school hit, and then the teen years hit, and then the 20s hit. And before that, I was pretty addicted to cycling, and that's what I did. And that's what I just did it. I got up and I rode. And then when I got into the teen years, got into the high school years, I decided to shift that addiction, and I went to the other things that, the drinking and the drugs and all that. And that took a hold of me for a while. And I focused on becoming the best at that. And I think I succeeded to some degree.
So what we're dealing with is the addiction. It's your addiction was to cycling at first, right?
I believe so, yeah, because I believe that my belief, and I could be, I don't have any scientific evidence, I'm just a 1.32 GPA out of high school. I believe that addiction, it's a trait that you have, and an addictive personality is you have it. And that's nothing that can be cured. It is what it is. And you can use it as a passion, but when it crosses that line, it turns into obsession, and it becomes a problem. Okay. And I loved cycling, and then when I got into the other stuff, I enjoyed that more, and kind of stopped it all. And I took advantage of that, which is the bad road to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. And addiction is something that is near and dear to me, because I've been around it all my life. Even having 2 DUIs and one that, even recently I'm still feeling the effects of. My mother was an alcoholic and drug addict, and my sister, my brother. Some would say that I'm an anomaly to have come out of a environment the way that environment, such a toxic environment, to even be the person I am now, an ordained minister and doing what I'm doing, functioning. But addiction is a serious thing, and I love the fact that you put it as a character trait. So I had this model, and I still kind of live by it, all or nothing. I'm one of those people that is very, I guess if you had to categorize it the way you categorize addiction as it's a character trait. So you just replace your addiction with substance, right? So where you were a cyclist and you replaced it with drugs or alcohol, the character trait is still there. You just had to replace what you were addicted to. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you transfer it, right? I mean,
Okay.
people you don't get cured from that addictive personality. It's just who you are, and you can accept it, and you can face the problem, which is FTP, face the problem, right, and figure out how to handle that, and then change it into something that's socially accepted. Okay. There's a lot of addictions, and it could be work, it could be working out, it could be family, it could be a lot of things. Just don't cross the line into that obsession. Just make it a passion of yours.
And so it's pretty common, like with people who are workaholics, for instance. That's an addictive character trait, right? They just have their substance is something different. Maybe it's not drugs. Maybe it's not alcohol. People who are sexaholic or womanizer or men or women, whatever that is, it's a matter of what the substance is. And in cycling, we see it quite often, right? Because cycling can be a very addictive. There's people who completely become obsessed with this particular sport, or any sport for that matter. But it's amazing when I get to this level of cycling, you can see those character traits easily. And now that's a healthier, but it's still the character trait. If you know what you're looking for, you see the character trait.
It can be healthier, right? I mean, that's the whole goal, but it can be pretty detrimental too, depending on how they go about it, and if they're neglecting other things, or if they're running themselves into the ground with it, and it all depends. There's a balance,
Absolutely.
and there's a balance, and there's the rest days, if you will, and there's the time that you need to focus on to do other things, and when I was drinking and doing all the other stuff, I just kind of ignored the other things and figured out what my priorities were. And the priorities were doing the things that I shouldn't have been doing.
No, go ahead.
There's enough, and there's enough we make time for what's important to us.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and if you look at my Strava out there, and there will be people that see it, I make time for what's important to me, and what's important to me is riding, but I can't do it during the day. So you'll see on my Strava, it'll be 2:00 in the morning, or 1:30 in the morning, or 3:00 in the morning, because I need to get my miles in.
There you go. So let's go backwards. Let's talk about now when you got introduced to alcohol. Was it just alcohol? Was it alcohol, drugs? Was it both? What?
It was in the beginning. It was alcohol, and then it went down the other road for all the other.
Okay. So you were in your teen years, you say?
I was drinking fairly young. I smoked pot in high school, and then once I got out of high school is when I discovered everything else.
Okay. What would you say? Now you were cycling still at this time, I'm assuming, right? Because you said you were pretty much an avid cyclist at that point.
I was an avid cyclist, but it faded away. Once you get that driver's license, once you start doing other things, you become that teenager. That kind of goes off to the side, and other things stepped in.
Okay. did you have, what about your family? Does addiction run in your family as far as drugs, substance, alcohol?
It doesn't, not that I see.
Okay.
Um, I just went down and maybe it does, but they were smarter than me and they know how to contain it and control it.
Okay.
I didn't, and maybe, and I say I didn't want to, I
Okay.
firmly believe it's a choice. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And I chose to do it, and I chose to do a lot of it, but then I chose to stop doing it.
Okay. So let's talk about that whole stopping. At what point did you get to during this season of addiction to, these substances or whatever? What was it that kind of made you come out of it? What brought you to the point that you realized I'm destroying my life?
That's an interesting question, Cross, because I think anybody that's gone through what I've gone through is they've experienced it and they knew they had a problem way before they addressed the problem, way before they faced it. And I knew a couple years before I decided to do something that I had a problem. I just kind of ignored it, pushed it back, and delayed it as long as possible. And then it was, I can tell you quite frankly, it was 10:30 at night. It was a February 25th. It was a Tuesday. And it was 1997, and I said no more. And it's because I was losing myself. I was losing who I was or who I thought I was, and I didn't know. So I just said enough is enough.
So you just had an awakening, like that awakening moment. You had that reflection in the mirror. You seen yourself. You've already known it was a problem, but now
Sure.
you didn't like what you seen. You seen yourself in the mirror and you just didn't like what you were becoming. Did you have a family at this point, or, I didn't even ask, do you have family now?
I was married. I was married, didn't have any kids yet. And I just knew that I couldn't do it anymore. So I had to make a change.
Okay. And around what year was this, you say? 1997?
1997. Yep.
Okay. So in that change, what happened? Like, explain to me the change for those that's out there that's in a situation, maybe right now listening, and they want to know, okay, I get it. You looked in the mirror, you seen yourself. I'm looking in the mirror, I see myself, but I can't see how to just change like that. Some people can make that 360 on their own, or whether they're doing it on their own or whatever they want to credit to. Others have to go get help to do it. But for you, what did that look like? I mean, walk me through that process.
Great question. So I realized I needed it. I realized I needed help. I didn't know what to help because I didn't know what to do. So I went to Mercy Center in Aurora, and it was the very next day I went in there. So I didn't change my mind overnight. I went in there and I met with a lady by the name of Linda Pepper, and they decided that I needed to do an outpatient treatment, which was, I don't know, 4 or 5 nights a week. I don't remember off the top of my head. And then a Saturday. And it was 4 weeks, I believe, that I did that. But it's funny because I knew I was done. I knew it was a choice. I just didn't have the tools or didn't know what tools to use to be able to go down that path. So once I decided that, and then once I saw other people in the program, if you will, I realized I was going to make it out, and I could tell by a lot of other people they weren't, because they didn't decide. They were just going through the motions for other reasons beside themselves.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is at this point, it's not about being in a program, because I've seen it. I've seen my sister go in and out of programs. I've seen various people that I know go in and out of programs, but I remember, and my story is a little bit different in that sense that it was more of relationship and some of the things I went through, even when I was kind of out there lost, and I'll say I was lost, and I had to come to that awakening moment where, for me, just like you, it was a matter of making my mind up to say, this is not who I want to be. This will not define my legacy. Like, this is not what the last thing will be said about me. Is this the life I lived? But I've seen, let me back that up. I've seen people go in programs, but didn't have that mindset. And so, I've seen them go through these programs over and over and over again. And the thing that I'm hearing you say is that even before you went in, you didn't have the tools, but you had the mindset that I'm done.
Yeah, and that's what it really is. And people go in, I don't think, and this is speculation. Again,
Absolutely.
I'm
We're not defining everyone's substance.
yeah.
We know that there are some mental things. Some people, it's clinical. Some people need to be on medication. We understand that. We're talking about it from our experience and our perspective.
Yeah, and I believe it's a choice, and you need those tools, whatever those tools are. Just and people, they don't decide. They decide they're going to do, the whole one day at a time. For me, I personally don't understand that, because that makes every single day, day in and day out, very hard, because I'm just trying to get through that day. I decided day one, I'm never going to do it again. And now, are there going to be hard days? Sure, but I've already determined I'm never going to drink again. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
I'll do other dumb stuff because I'm really good at that. I mean, I'm a Zimmerman. That's what we do. But I'm not gonna do that. So what tools do I need? And one of the things that and if people need to do the one day at a time and they need to go to the program and it works for them, that's great, as long as it works for them and they're not using that program to hang on to that exit strategy or to hang on to that victimhood to have that out, because they can always go back there, right? Right. I believe in something that's the success triangle. I learned it a long time ago, and it's all about behavior, attitude, and technique. Okay. And it all starts with behavior. Everything starts with behavior. And if you do the right behaviors and you have the right attitude about it, the techniques are all the tools that you're going to be given.
Okay.
And when I was drinking, I had very good behavior to make sure that I was going to drink, and I had my mindset to make sure that I was going to drink, and I had the tools to make sure whatever it took that I was going to be able to drink. And so the success triangle can be bad, and we all run it, but I've decided to make it for good. And what behaviors do I need to do to make sure that I don't do that bad behavior anymore? And what attitude am I going to have about it? And then the technique comes. There's technique all over the place. If you really truly want to get better, you will find it. If you're just going to say you want to get better, then you'll have that belief or that attitude that you're not going to find those tools.
It's that's an absolute fact. All the way down to the environment, the people that you surround yourself with, the company that you keep. All these things become part of that system of change, right? Because I know for me, unfortunately, I had to disconnect from a lot of friends, a lot of family, honestly, that was enabling. Not so much. I won't even say enabling. I'll say that was part of fostering that behavior that I had that was toxic. And here's the thing. So, and this is for you audience out there. In that separation, for me, it was a spiritual journey. I had to get back to what I knew. I had come to know God. I had walked away from church. I walked away from the Lord, and I was in this real dark place for many years, went through a divorce, and I was just spiraling down. And when I walked away from this environment of people that I believed that was creating or helping me create this toxic environment, it was only for a season for me. It was a season that I needed to remove myself to get strong enough to be independent in myself to make the right choices, no matter who I'm around. Not that I needed to not ever go around certain family. I just at a point of my weakness, I couldn't be around certain people. But now today I can go around any one of them because I'm very independent and reassured in myself to know who I am, and that no matter what you do, no matter what kind of environment you put, it's not going to influence me to do what I've already made up my mind that I'm not doing anymore. And I think that's part of those two.
And I think that's a very responsible way of looking at it. And unfortunately, I think people that don't FTP, they don't face the problem. They point fingers at everybody else and they say, well, it's the bad people. And no matter where you go, you're still there.
You're still there.
Right. It's the drinking's not bad. Doing the other stuff isn't bad. It's just that some people can't do it. Right. You know, moderation. I don't know moderation. If somebody says, let's do a century, I say, let's do two. You know, if somebody says, let's have a drink, I say, let's have a sitting. That's what I used to say, you know, and we would stay there for 8 hours. So, I just can't do it. Now, do I avoid people? No. Did I? Sure. Because exactly like you said, we had to figure out how to get right with ourselves before we could start, you know, seeing the other people. And it's not the other people that created us. We found those other people to embrace where we were going, you know. That's right. And I'll go to the bars. I'll hang out at the bars. We got to face society. You can't be a zealot. You can't be self-righteous, and you've got to live in today's society. And right. How you handle that is your responsibility, and it's facing the problem every single day, no matter what that problem is.
And so that gets us back to the whole idea of choice, right? It's our choice to be or not to be. It's our choice to do or not do. But you do have to, and what we're saying here to the listening audience is that in that season of your weakness, you have to find yourself in order to make that choice, you know, because the easiest thing to do, like you just said, is point the finger and say, well, the reason I'm this way is because of X, Y, or Z, not really pointing the finger back at ourselves saying, hey, I made that choice. You know, I'm in this adulterous relationship. I don't have to be. It ain't her fault. It ain't, you know, I always laugh at, you know, we do a lot of marriage counsel, and it's well, not at the counseling, but how easy it is for the partner to be mad at the other person and not the spouse or the cheating spouse, right? It's easy to point, well, she was going after my man or he was going after no, your spouse or whoever, they had to make that choice, right? They're the ones in the relationship. I'm the one in the relationship. If I do this drug, I have to you can put all the drugs you want in front of me. I still have to make the choice to pick it up, whether I'm going to shoot it, smoke it, snort it, whatever it is. It's my choice. It's my choice.
Or not choose it, right?
Or not choose it. And that's the point. It's the choice.
Let's look at choice, and let's take it in two perspectives, okay? Let's take it in the cycling world, and let's take it in the addiction. And it's funny because our brain can trick us and deceive us to make it think that it is more powerful than our body. And a good example of that is that my longest bike ride I ever did was 250 miles in one day. And that was this year that I did that. So I counted that as 2 centuries. If anybody wants to argue it, they can ride 250 miles in one day and we can have that conversation. But until then, I'm counting it as 2 centuries. So I decided when I planned that bike ride, which was the Wednesday before the Saturday that I did it, because that's just kind of the way I am, that I mentally had to get prepared that I was riding 250 miles that day.
Right.
My body has never done 250 miles. It's done 230, but that was a whole year ago, right? So my brain, when I'm going through it, I did 100 miles, I did 150 miles, I did 150 or 200 miles, and I remember I was 70 miles out, and I was in not Ottawa, Starved Rock. I was in Starved Rock, so I had 70 miles to get back. And I knew that I had 70 miles, and I was feeling really good. And then when I was 40 miles out, I had 210 miles. I'm like, well, maybe I could do a few more miles. And then I got to 220, and then I'm like, I think I might be able to do a few more miles. And then I got to 240, and I'm like, I just want to get home, because my brain decided before I even started that I was going to do 250 miles that day. I can't change that. My brain was prepared for that, so my body was prepared for that. Our body will do whatever our brain commits to. So when it comes to addiction, if we decide that we don't want to do it anymore, make our brain decide that, And yeah, does people have to go through withdrawals and they have to go through things and they have to go through? Yes, but if their brain truly committed to that, their body will get through it every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Our body is stronger than we think it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I agree with it. I look at it from a soul, spirit, and body, but in context, it's exactly right. And that is the spirit of man, which what you're referring to as the brain, is stronger than the body, and it governs everything. So if you will, that's why I said, let our will, if you will yourself to do something, you'll be surprised at what you can do physically if you make it up in your mind to will yourself to do something. People, you know, a perfect example, they had, I'm sorry. There was a woman, her child had got stuck. It was a YouTube video. Her child had got stuck under a car or something like that. And the child was screaming. I don't know how it happened, but she literally went over there and lifted the car to get that child out. Now, she could have tried that on any other day and wouldn't have lifted that car. She wouldn't have got that car.
Right.
But in that instance, her will overtook every physical capability that she knew she could do, and probably couldn't repeat it again, except in a situation that forced her will to truly force her body to act in a very supernatural way, where she was able to lift that car up to get that child out of there, to save her child's life. So I am 100% in agreement with that. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. You was about to say something.
No, that's okay. That was great. That was a great story. So it's the whole. So when I decided that night, February 25th, 10:30, it was a Tuesday, 1997, that I was never going to drink again. I knew I was never, because I decided that. Yeah. You know, when you say it's going to be one day at a time and I'm just going to try to get through this month, you are playing mind games with yourself to figure out how to get out of this situation, because you really haven't fully committed to it.
Yeah. And for some people, that's their journey, right? And for others,
sure,
we are two of the same in that. I remember when I was going through what I was going through, and my godmother said to me, and I'll never forget this statement. She said, Mike, not everyone's like you where they can just do a 360. And that was hard for me to rationalize, because in my head, I think, no, they actually can, if they just truly make up their mind to do a 360, or not a 360, a 180, really, because not 360 is turning right back to the problem, but do a 180. And the truth of the matter is, some people, that process of that 180 is in steps, right? And we don't want to discredit the journey for people, because ultimately, as long as you get to the 180.
And that goes true, 100% true. And that's where it goes back to the behavior, attitude, technique aspect of it, you know, is what behaviors are doing. And the attitude, all our attitude is our beliefs about a certain thing. And if we're not 100% confident in ourselves yet, our attitude is going to waver on that. But as long as we do that behavior and we find those tools to help us, you know, for the tools to help us, it may be me just being stubborn and going through that 4 weeks and saying I'm never doing it again. And that may be enough tools for me to last 26 years come this February, right? But it also may be somebody that does do the program and they go to meetings every single week. As long as they're staying true to that and they're not looking for an excuse to get out of this, but they're actually staying what they need to do, then that's the tool that they need to use every single day. Some people can fight cancer with chemo and radiation, and some people can fight it with where they're going to have elective surgery or something like that. Again, I'm speaking out of nowhere, but it all depends. You know, my father was 20 feet in the air. He was 65 years old. He was cutting a tree down and the tree bucked. And he got kicked off the ladder and he shattered his back, and his choices were to have surgery or to lay in a turtle shell for 3 months in bed to naturally heal. You know, and the difference was that he was going to lose mobility if he had to have surgery, because they were going to fuse everything together.
Okay.
And you know, he's active. He was 65 at the time. He's still very active. My parents are very active. There's, you know, and they're 85. He's 85 now, but he elected to naturally. That was his choice. and he committed to it, and his behaviors were such, and his attitude was, I'm going to have the flexibility and I'm going to be able to do the things that I need to do. So I'm going to go through this. And that was his process. Some other people, they don't care about that. And they want to get, what do I need to do to get back up and running? Even if I'm only going to have 50% of my mobility, what do I need to do? And that could be the elective surgery, right?
That's right.
So we have our choices on how long we want to do it or what we want to go through. And it's up to us to make sure, is our ultimate choice, our ultimate goal to be able to do that.
Yes.
Because if we have any doubt in our brain whatsoever, we will find an excuse. Our brain's pretty powerful to find excuses that we think are just well thought out reasons.
Absolutely.
Next year I'm going on my longest bike ride to date, and I'm already mentally preparing for it. Or I could figure out, well, maybe I won't be able to do it, and I could find reasons not to do it. But
that's right.
I'm already prepared to do it, so I'm voicing it and I'm telling people out there what I'm doing. So now I can't get out of it.
That's right.
That's the way I am.
This season for camp, we have our cycling race team that's starting next year, and the one thing that I always stress is not just commit to it. Tell people you're gonna do it. Because then you're held accountable to your word. And if you're a person that value your word, I value my word. So if you are committed in your mind to do something, you shouldn't be afraid to announce it. If you're afraid to announce it, then that's the hesitancy of your lack of faith in what you are really committing yourself to. So I love the idea that you're telling people, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I've committed to it. So I'm going to be held accountable to doing it. First by myself, and then those I announced it out to, that this is what's going to get done.
Yep. And I'm riding my bike from Sugar Grove, Illinois to the UP, and it's 300 miles, and I'm doing it in a day.
There you go. All right. All Things Fitness fans, All Things Fitness listeners, you heard it. Chuck Zimmerman is going from, Aurora to UP?
Sugar Grove. Yep. Sugar Grove right next to Aurora up to the UP.
Okay. Up to the UP, 300 miles. He's riding it. We're going to hold him accountable to it. We're going to look and see it on his Strava, but not to see if he doesn't do it in June, not to see if he doesn't do it, but to congratulate him for when he finishes it. That's what we're looking for.
There you go. Thank you.
Listen, man, this time went fast. Believe it or not, it's over already. It just seemed like it started.
Cross, I appreciate you having me on. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, listen, I enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed you sharing your story. Thank you again for sharing your story. There are so many that I believe that were blessed by it and may have learned something to help them on their journey. That's, we would hope, well, the world is what it is. So we know that there's others that's going through what we've been through, but it's always my desire. I tell people I went through a divorce. I would wish it on no one. It is a horrible thing. However, me having gone through it, I share my experience all the time to help prevent people from having to go through it. Because it's not a good thing. It's not good for the family. It's not good for your children. It's not good for you. I don't care. There's no winners in situations like that. In the same way with addictions, right? We survived it, but there's no winners in this thing. It's a matter of surviving. Do I wish I'd have never gone through it? I had to experience it. That would be a perfect world. Great. But that's not the case. So your story is helping someone else survive what they may be going through and what you've been through. To be on the other side of it now, to say, hey, I'm going to ride 300 miles in a single day, that's an incredible thing. That's an incredible thing.
Or just stupid.
Okay, I was going to let you say that part, but I'm going to go with the incredible thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck, man. Listen, I appreciate it. We got to have you back. Again, if you know anyone, please recommend them on the show so we can share their story the same. All right?
All right. Thank you much.
Thank you. All right. Listen up, guys. I hope you were blessed today. I hope you heard something that was able to help you, that enlightened you, that maybe shine some light or some insight on what you're going through. You know, I'm a man of faith, and our scripture we hold on to is Philippians 14:3. I can do all things in Christ who strengthened me. I am a believer that the will, and today what you heard was the human will is very strong. And that is an absolute fact. The human will is an incredible thing. Science can't get a handle on it. Why? Because science didn't create it. The human will is it's a very unique, it's the mind of man. I don't know if we'll ever fully understand what we're capable of. But the one thing we definitely do know, even just from this podcast today, and that's that when you make up your mind to do something, your body will come in agreement. It's going to do whatever your mind commands it to do. Your body will never do the opposite of what your mind. It needs to be controlled by something. So if you understand that, then you understand that the decision has to be made in your mind. You have to have the will for change in order for change to happen. So I pray, and I pray that someone out there today is listening. No matter what you're going through. We talked about substance today, but this principle applies all the way across the board. I don't care what it is. If you're in a toxic relationship or if you are in a problematic time in your life, no matter what it is, it starts first with a decision for you to want change. If you want it, if you want change, change will begin to happen when you accept it mentally that it's needed. So, with all that being said, all things fitness, this is your boy Cross, the Christian Cyclist, and we'll see you again on the next episode.